2020 is 20 years I've been studying, practicing, and teaching astrology. And what I know for sure as a professional counseling astrologer, everybody wants to know, when is Mercury retrograde? So we're doing a special topics on what is Mercury retrograde, what do I need to know about Mercury retrograde, and the Mercury retrogrades for 2020. Welcome to Astrology with me. This is Kathryn Andren. Thanks for tuning in this time for these few moments together. So what is Mercury retrograde? It's an illusion. It's a story. Here we are. We live on the third rock from the sun. We're sitting here on Earth, and as all the planets in our solar system are going around the sun, every once in a while, it appears, or it may seem, that some of our planets move backwards against the backdrop of stars in the sky. So just as if we were on a bus or a train and we're on the track with other folks on the train tracks, it could seem or appear that the people in the car next to us are going backwards, but they're not. All right, so Mercury retrograde is a phenomena. It's an event that happens for 3 weeks, 3 times a year, when Mercury, the planet of communications and commerce in our sky story, it'll drop below the horizon and meet up with the sun, or go in front of the sun and then come up again in the other part of the sky. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it's a symbol of taking a step back. It's a symbol to reflect, to review, to revise, or redo something or a situation in our life. Now, depending on where Mercury is in the sky, on what zodiac sign it is, as well as where Mercury may fall in your personal birth chart, the Mercury retrograde can give a little added emphasis or an extra flavor. So that's a little bit about what is Mercury retrograde. It's a symbolic intention to reset, reflect, review, or repeat. We hear things about sometimes our communications go haywire. So some supportive suggestions for Mercury retrograde would be to back up your computers, make sure you have your insurance in your car. You want to double check anything that has to do with transportations or communications. All right. When is Mercury retrograde? Okay, the next Mercury retrograde that's coming up is June 17th, 2020, and it goes through July 12th. We have another Mercury retrograde this year in 2020. That's October 13th through November 3rd. So I want to just highlight a little bit what these Mercury retrogrades are about, what their themes are. And since we're talking about retrograde, I'm going to look back to what happened earlier this year in 2020. Okay? Remember, Mercury retrogrades are times to reflect and review. So in the month of June, we have a Mercury retrograde in the zodiac sign of Cancer. The zodiac sign of Cancer represents the quality of energy of home and nurturing and family. In an article I wrote at the end of last year giving people supportive suggestions for the Mercury retrograde, I said, have a staycation this year. Why don't you stay home in June? That's before all kinds of other information came out. So if you got any travel plans for June or July, I'm actually going to highly recommend you stay home. All right? Mercury, again, is the planet that represents thought process and information, the way we exchange ideas. So if Mercury's gone retrograde, we want to be extra cautious during this time in our communication style. You want to think before you speak. All right? And because this Mercury retrograde is in a water sign, the zodiac sign of Cancer, it's an invitation to be perhaps more open or emotional with your communication. It's like really getting real and authentic with your feeling center. The other Mercury retrograde that's coming up later this year in October into November is the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. It starts in Scorpio and it goes back into the cardinal sign of Libra. Now, the fall of 2020 is going to be a really interesting timeline not just because we have Mercury retrograde, but the Mercury retrograde is going to be coinciding with another planet pattern called the Mars retrograde. So please subscribe to the channel and look below and check out the other coming videos about the planets, as well as the Mars retrograde and hindsight 2020. All right, we have the fall of 2020 as a potent time for really reflecting on the thought process and doing right action. Mars is going retrograde. Mercury is going retrograde. So it's a time to revisit, review, revise, reconsider before moving forward. We really need some thoughtful thought processes during these times. It's not time to rush ahead. Speaking of rolling back and reviewing, I'm just going to take a few moments to honor and acknowledge the Mercury retrograde that occurred in the zodiac sign of Pisces back in February and early March of this year. So my experience was that, as well as many of you, that's when we started to hear about the pandemic and the COVID virus. And the Mercury retrograde was in 12 degrees Pisces. It started at 12 degrees Pisces, and it was aligned and touching with the character called Neptune. Neptune in astrology is about dissolving boundaries and dissolving borders. So again, astrology is a symbol. We had the Mercury retrograde in February and March that was tuned and aligned with Neptune. So the communications were maybe more blurred than usual. The communications perhaps were less clear than usual, and we've had to have extra attention and awareness to get the right information and to find out what's true. So that's a little reflection for you around Mercury retrogrades and Mercury retrogrades in general, as well as specific Mercury retrogrades to this year in 2020. And I want to support you in your journey this year to share with you some more thoughtful and heartfelt and conscious communication during these changing times. Have a visit with me, sign up on my website. I call The Love Astrologer, and send me your email. I'll be happy to give you some more information and articles to support you during these changing times. Thank you. We'll see you next time.